confessions of the rain, or an apology for the delay. An elemental prima donna, I can't resist the spotlight. Any opportunity to expose the immoderate range of my theatrical abilities. The soft, sad tears of lost childhood, drizzle specks of the aimless, fickle lover, melodramatic downpour of grieving mothers, or villainous, lightning rage. Yes, my entrances and exits are exquisitely planned. I care only for my own trends, patterns, systems. Even if you try to keep me off the list, trust me, my celebrity is legendary. Ropes will be lifted, security appeased, and I'll be waved right in. Like all divas, I demand an audience. Guilty as charged, choose your cover. As I waltz through the sky, clouds dropping like hankies in my wake. And I sometimes get asked a lot, like, why is an artist so interested in sport? And I like to point out a whole history of artists and intellectuals who've always been interested in sport. So this poem, it does have a true component to the beginning of it, which is that Plato competed and was a champion in the Olympics. Wrestling with Plato. Few professors willingly admit this fact. Plato competed in 2 Olympic Games, 2-time champion of the pancration, an ancient form of combat combining boxing and wrestling. As we students of knowledge memorized dialogues of law and love, dictated our teachers' pedantic diatribes, debated the pros and cons of Socratic method and dramatic form, whether in lecture, tutorial, or colloquium, as we strengthened our feeble young minds, no one ever mentioned Plato's physical prowess. Were our doctors of philosophy ignorant of his exploits, embarrassed by the stark images of man grabbing man? Humiliated by the truth, they wouldn't last 3 seconds on the mat. Or were they simply unnerved by how even Plato accepted arguments with words frequently fail, and the poets are kept behind fences for their own good, as language drops to its knees in the shadow of death, and body rubs up against body in a struggle of basic utterance, the mortal struggle for the most moral way to stand one's ground. And this is a poem for all of the cycling enthusiasts out there. Obsessive-compulsive cycling disorder. My doctor says I don't need medication, only a rest from approaching the world.
Roger Donaldson asked the group to come up with a song for his feature Cocktail. The romantic drama would star Tom Cruise, red hot after Top Gun and The Color of Money, as a New York business student who becomes a hotshot bartender and goes to ply his trade in Jamaica, where he falls for an American artist played by Elizabeth Shue. It couldn't miss. Terry Melcher, who had produced the band's 1986 chart single Rock and Roll to the Rescue and a cover of the Mamas and the Papas' California Dreamin', believed he had a suitably tropical number for them. It came from none other than Papa John Phillips, who was trying to relaunch his dormant band with old friend Scott McKenzie, best known for singing Phillips' Summer of Love anthem, San Francisco, Be Sure to Wear Flowers in Your Hair. The pair had co-written Kokomo, an easy-listening recollection of a Caribbean getaway with a former love. There is a Kokomo, Indiana, but the song's locale does not actually exist. It had a solid melody and clever verses, but it wasn't rock and roll. Calling Dr. Love, purveyor of hooks. I said, wow, this is really nice, but it needs something to groove to, so I reached back into some of my influences, Mike recalls. That would be primarily the 50s R&B of Smokey Joe's Cafe by the Robins, precursors of the Coasters. The rhythm of the chorus is somewhat similar. It influenced my thinking on Kokomo, not in terms of melody, but in the groove and the beat, Mike notes. Mike, Mr. Positivity, changed the tense from past to present future, thereby transforming a wistful memory into an anticipated romantic rendezvous. While the verses in the two versions sound alike, the original song's chorus is completely different. Mike rewrote it, coming up with the most indelible section, in which the narrator lists off Caribbean locales and begs the woman to go with him. Melcher then tacked on a memorable part for Carl Wilson to sing. The record rings these hooks for all they're worth. Mike sings the chorus right out of the gate, and the original verses are streamlined so the group can return to the chorus as quickly as possible. The chorus is sung 5 times throughout the song, so the listener just can't escape it. It's a case study in the difference between a languishing demo and a smash hit. While Melcher and engineer Keith Wexler recorded the instrumental tracks, Mike was on the phone with them reciting the new chorus to make sure everything conformed. Among the musicians present were slide guitar great Ry Cooder, legendary session player Jim Keltner, who programmed the drums, and touring Beach Boys guitarist Jeffrey Foskett. Steel drums add Caribbean spice, while old collaborator Van Dyke Parks plays accordion and contributed to the vocal arrangement. The trippiest lyric Mike came up with on Kokomo is about getting a contact high. You can get a high from drugs or alcohol, but you can also get high on romance. The endorphins can really start to flow if you're in a romantic place with somebody you're in love with or attracted to, Mike says. He'll stick with the romantic highs, thank you. I didn't appreciate how LSD made some people act, he adds. It's just like alcohol. Some people can have a little bit of alcohol and be fine, and other people can have a bit of alcohol and it ruins their life. And when you see your cousins become addicted and impair themselves and affect their lives and everyone around them, I absolutely did have an aversion to all that. That's led me to becoming more appreciative of learning transcendental meditation from Maharishi, and I meditate to this day every day. You're able to gain some deep rest and clarity without the negative side effects of drugs or alcohol. More remarkable than who was involved in the sessions is who wasn't. Brian, whose hurt over the exclusion is evident in an interview 10 years later in the Endless Harmony documentary. According to Brian's memoir, the other Beach Boys did not give him enough of a heads up about a vocal session, informing him about it at the last second while he was busy recording his solo album, thereby ensuring he wouldn't be able to attend. Available session date information does not substantiate this claim, however. Mike insists there was no intention to leave out Brian. Brian's therapist, Dr. Eugene Landy, wouldn't let Brian sing on it unless Landy was a producer and co-writer, and Terry Melcher didn't feel he needed Landy since he had produced some #1 records, Mike says dryly. It was pathetic of Landy to do that, but he controlled Brian completely at that time. In the group's quest to make sure the Latin world didn't miss out, it re-recorded the song in Spanish, Bermuda, Bahamas, Vámonos mañana, and this time Brian got to sing on the chorus. Mike recalls that when director Donaldson heard it, he said, "This is the best song you've done since Good Vibrations." That sentiment would soon be shared. On July 18th, Elektra Records released the Kokomo 45, backed with a Little Richard oldie, Tutti Frutti. 11 days later, Cocktail opened to a $12 million box office, providing the song with a strong launchpad. But its climb would be long and slow and astonishing. A video was produced that cut between clips from the movie and the band lip-syncing the tune on the beach at Walt Disney World's new Grand Floridian Resort in front of an adoring crowd, including the requisite bikini-clad babes. Other elements purely for optics include John Stamos on steel drums and Mike handling the saxophone solo, which on the record is played by Joel Peskin. Boosted by MTV's video airplay, the record finally entered the Billboard charts on September 24th. With temperatures getting nippier, record buyers tried to keep the summer alive by picking up the 45 in droves. Its momentum unstoppable, the single surprised everyone, not least of all the band, when, on November 5th, it brought them their 4th US #1 and first since Good Vibrations 22 years earlier. It would become their best-selling US 7-inch record. Mike sees the song's success lying largely in its built-in multi-generational appeal. Pretty Mama could be a child literally thinking his mama is pretty, or it could be the senior citizen saying, "Let's get in the RV and go down to Florida," or the young guy who's checking out the chicks, says Mike. No matter what age a person in the audience is, they'll sing along with that chorus. It's probably the biggest sing-along we have, and we have some big ones. Despite Grammy and Golden Globe nominations, the hit does have its detractors. Blender magazine awarded it the ignominious distinction of being the worst song to have sex to, while blogger DJ Functual writes, "It makes me want to grab a baby boomer with a lame-ass Jimmy Buffett shirt by the back of the neck and stick him face first in the sand." Love it or hate it, Kokomo remains pervasive in mainstream culture. In fall '88, the group performed it on an episode of Stamos' Full House, and it has subsequently appeared in less reverent forms on comedy series including Friends, The Simpsons, Saturday Night Live, Scrubs, How I Met Your Mother, Family Guy, and American Dad. And who could forget Kermit the Frog's spirited rendition with the rest of the Muppets on the 1993 LP Muppet Beach Party? For the Beach Boys, well entrenched as an oldies act by the late 80s, the song garnered a whole new generation of listeners. The kid who dug it upon its release was a 30-something fan in 2012. It increased the appeal of the group to a broader audience. Even today, teenagers and even preteens sing it along with us in concert, Mike notes. Half a century in, the Beach Boys frontman continued to rule as rock's ultimate road warrior. Having
70s, it was boring. It was a garment district. There's nothing, the bars weren't patios at all in Toronto at that time. So, it was a very, very different area. And OCA, was right up the street at McCall, just up the street from the Beverly Tavern, which at the time was the sort of nothing bar. It was sort of dead most of the time. It had this empty upstairs. And so when punk happened, all of a sudden all these people who thought the only way you could be in a band was to, be a trooper, play top 40 rock covers and, get a week-long gig at a bar, realized they could write their own songs, put on their own shows, and kind of create their own culture. That was really a new invention at that time.
Of good standing
and what happened was all these students at OCA
just last
went down
month, I foiled
to
another
Beverly
attempt
Tavern,
on a
which is
summer's
now
life
a
with
Spring
turkey
Rolls across from Much Music
some
Building.
Munster.
And
Details
basically said,
are
hey, look, like,
classified,
there's
keep in
nobody
mind I'm
here.
handy and
So
colored.
can we put on a show,
Food tastes so
upstairs
stressful.
on Friday or whatever?
I had early
and this
in
was
my
Band
career a
Dishes.
public
This
calling
early
out
kind of like
the court
rock music
jester,
style
stabbed him
proto-punk
with the
band.
meat
You listen to it now, it doesn't really sound terrible.
That was my
It's like a
first
saxophone
promotion.
keyboard player and it's
Sous chef.
kind of like light
An
and
onion
corny and
peeled
really
for every
fun.
thumped
But it was
crack,
this sort
their
of
eyes
new
dim
and
with the
exciting
future
thing at that
to be
time.
had.
So they let them
Is
put on
that
the show
meal
at the Beverly
swaddled
Tavern
in a
and it
grand
went well, and
carriage
it was like,
between
okay,
county
let's
estates,
do some more.
king of my
And you
own
have the
catering
beginning of
company.
this really vibrant punk scene.
Indeed, the envoy gallops over the rise, tables set, and I, the
then also
fancy new
comes to involve
hat.
the Diodes, who are
Ready
one of the,
to draw breath.
classic punk bands in the city. And so that Beverly Tavern sort of begins to seed kind of cool stuff on Queen Street. And then there's also the
I read
European
a book
restaurant,
comes
which is
from
still
Probably
there, you can still
Inevitable,
go. It's not a
and
spring
one of
roll.
the reasons I chose the title.
And
Not supposed to
that was
you
run
should
by
modify an
artists. They
abstract
employed
adjective like
artists.
this.
They employed the guys in the dishes.
Yet some other
And
language
there's
gives us a
a great quote from all these guys talking about how
almost as if there were two universes, and one the event is inevitable, another isn't, and probably kind of bridges that gap. So,
Dreadlocks up in a turban that looked like soft ice cream.
He
shifted from one foot to the other, searching me out. He was not half naked and glistening like he was in Key West.
I
felt my heart pound. I could not cross the street. I saw Jen and Charlene coming up arm in arm through the bodies of kids from our school. I took off my knapsack, dropped it on the ground, pretending I needed something in there. I didn't know if Elijah had seen me yet, but I could feel Jen's body, her smell when she got close. She wore some fancy Renfrew perfume. Look at that crazy guy. I heard Charlene say to Jen, look, across the street. Jen and Charlene stopped about 5 feet away from me. I dug deeper in my bag. I found an old pear. Jen dropped her bag on the ground too. It was like she was copying me or something. Weird, Charlene said loudly. He's looking at us. I don't know why, but it felt like for a second that Jen was going to apologize to me. I imagined us being friends again, everything going back to normal. I took a bite of the mushy pear. Then Jen said, no, he's not looking at us. He's looking at Myra. It was mean how she said my name. She said Myra like she hated me. I stood up quickly and put my knapsack back on. I started to walk fast towards the school and I stepped on her bag by accident. fuck?" Jen said. "What the hell is wrong with you?"
Brother and sister
Sorry.
watched the estate lawyer.
I felt Elijah from the other side of the street, his hands in the air like a vapor. "Sorry," Jen mocked me. "Don't be so fucking immature," I said. I lurched past them in the direction of the school. "Oh, don't be a fucking cunt," Charlene said after me. I stopped and turned around in shakes. "I am a cunt," I yelled. They were both crouched down like frogs. I felt the pair skin split at a bruise, and "You're both cunts too." I took a look across the street. Elijah walked out in the middle of traffic, holding his arms out to stop the cars. The wind billowed his robe. He was all happy too. I smiled too. Charlene and Jen had out their phones. Elijah had a beard of longish black moss. Cars beeped. He looked totally religious. It was weird he wasn't wearing a coat. I thought for a second of running, going to the principal. I could have even called my dad, who I knew was at home in the basement doing nothing. Jen and Charlene were watching me. "He fucking knows her?" I heard Jen asking. Elijah grabbed me tight by the wrist, and I realized that I had made this happen. My thoughts had made this happen. Elijah's hand was a half rough, half smooth piece of ice. "What happened to you?" Elijah peered at my cheek. The scabs had not completely disappeared, but I hid them under my mother's cream. I yanked my wrist away from him. "I'm just hungry," I said. I took another bite of the pear. Elijah leaned in close to me. He got right up close. "What happened to you, Angel? You don't need that crap on your face." He reached his finger out and swiped my cheek. Orange stuff came off. I knew
Okay,
that
hello. Can you hear
Jen
me?
and Charlene were
All right, my name is Edward
shocked to
Keenan.
death that I was
I
talking
wrote a
to
book
this
this
guy,
year
and I knew
called
this
Some
guy.
Great Idea, which
This
is
man
about
was here from Key West for
me and Toronto and politics.
"So what are you
and
hiding
what
under
for.
there?" said Elijah.
So you have a choose
There
your
was
own
mush in my
adventure
mouth, so I just shook my head.
choose to read.
I looked around.
Mainly
Charlene
about
and Jen
me in
motioned
the
to
city
me to come
and
over to
a
them.
moment of feeling in love with the city.
Elijah held
Or I
out a
can read
business
about Rob
card.
Ford.
"This is where I'm staying," he said.
What do you think?
I
The
reached
first
for
one,
the card, but he
Toronto?
pulled it away.
Yeah? Okay.
"You want it?"
That's refreshing
Yeah.
because
Come
I write so
closer.
much about the mayor that it seems like sometimes that's all people want.
Jen